I don't remember them ever taking the other rental boat back. I don't think they ever did. What did they do with it?
They forgot to tell them. They forgot to write in that they returned it. They never see the boat owner again. Oh my god. Don't worry. We'll buy tackle this time. We'll return it. And they don't. They just go fly. They go fly.
It's 2018 and everyone gets a podcast. Mine is the Hardy Boys Drinkbook. Each week I sit down with creative and hilarious people to talk about a book in the Hardy Boys mystery series. Then we have one of our favorite local bartenders mix us up a custom cocktail to sip while we read. Today I'm joined by paleontologist Patrick Sullivan. And for drinks, we're going to the Lowry Beer Garden to sit around with some of our past hosts and talk about our favorite memories from the last year of the podcast. Travel down to the Deep South, get involved in a land dispute, and assume that what is clearly a man in a rubber costume is an underwater sea monster in the Hardy Boys Drinkbook number 14, The Hidden Harbor Mystery, Part 2, featuring Patrick Sullivan.
All right, so
Where were we?
They see this
They
note.
got locked in a room.
They see the note, and the note flutters up.
Right.
And it gets caught on the fire escape outside the building.
Right.
Or
Which is outside their window or something?
Yeah, there's like a fire escape
This
for
is
some
where
reason
I was
outside
trying to
this.
make use of the illustration they provided.
It doesn't help. Because that looks like they're outside of like a New York or something. Like, why are these...
What is
No,
he
they're
grabbing
not-
onto?
They're not... Right, what is he hanging on to? Because it's not fire escapes. They're like two... Like, they're two different balconies that have metal railings around them.
Yeah.
And they're going to swing from one balcony, aerialist style, with
to the one with the note on it.
Yeah, to the one that has the note on
This
it.
is all what? Like, they didn't try to draw out more windows. This is... On the picture, it looks like it's 4 feet off the ground, but
Yeah, exactly.
I imagine
They could've
there's
hopped
probably
down.
another set of windows down there, so probably like 15 feet.
Yeah, so he grabs Frank's legs, Joe does, and Frank swings, and Joe swings on the end of his legs to grab or hook his legs on the other, which I'm like, well, now Frank is left on that other side, right? But they're all doing it just to get this white paper, and I wrote, let's see, a swift gust of wind carried the white square upwards, spiraled directly towards the boys. I wrote, no. And then it says...
Wait, why'd you write no?
Because that wouldn't happen. Why would that happen? And then they do this whole swinging thing, and they land on the balcony, and they say, just as he stepped to safety, a fresh gust of wind whirled the white paper upward and away.
Yeah.
And I wrote, no. Like, why
Wind
would this
doesn't
have
really
only...
work that way,
yeah.
Well,
they do get it eventually.
Do
right?
know that gusts of wind can carry note paper.
That's true. I have seen that.
So it was just two poorly timed gusts.
Okay.
I don't suspect foul. I didn't really suspect foul play in this
In
this
the wind.
encounter. This was probably the least. I don't know. This whole 20 pages, I'm just like, okay, get the note. Get him. Just
Then
learn.
Chet, who's been waiting down this passage, just comes around and he's like, hey, I got tired of waiting in that passage. What are you two doing up there? And we're like,
Yeah.
we're locked out of the house now.
It's like, I'll find a key in 5 seconds.
And so he walks up to the
Boom.
door, looks under the mat,
Under
gets a
the
key.
mat?
And I was like, that whole thing was pointless.
This is a mansion. Don't keep your key under the mat.
There's one key to the whole house. They
chase. They
chase
give
it.
chase.
They all hold, 3 of us standing on each other's shoulders. Oh, yeah, they all stand on each other's shoulders like a human ladder to climb up to the ledge towards the edge of a tree where the note is caught.
Mm-hmm. But there's no gust this time. There's no third gust. They get it.
The human ladder collapsed. The Hardys breaking their fall by somersaulting. They're circus performers now?
Yeah, they've done like a double swing, with the
Yeah.
ankle strength of a Cirque du Soleil actor.
Yeah,
and
now they do a
and
solid
now they do a somersault
tumble.
while falling, which you need to kick off something to do a somersault. So I was trying to imagine the physics of that because I did also write that down. That they somersault while falling, which is some
amazing stuff.
some D20 level shit.
Yeah. You think
I'll
that...
keep that in, but that's just my thoughts.
No, you'd think that if you tried as you were falling through the air to be like, I'll hit the ground and do a somersault, you'd roll onto your back and then you'd just hit the ground real hard.
I think what probably happened is they both hit the ground and they turned it into it.
As they hit the ground, they were like, oh.
I thought they did a backflip midair and were like, and so what I just did there,
Ta-da.
listeners, is I threw my hands in the air.
Yeah, he put his hands in the air. Well, the sound he made was, duh. And so I think that conveys.
Yeah, it's a
pretty
stuck
clearly.
landing sound.
The note just says, site of an Indian village. And then, and there's a house, it's like a map of the Rand property with a pond and a swamp
give
behind
that to
it.
the government. Like, repatriation will be a thing in another 20 years. Just let them handle that.
Yeah, Professor Rand has no interest in that. He just wants State University, just some state university, to fund his archaeological site.
He wants money. Is what he wants. They
sent him a letter saying, it says they have no funds for excavation of the site indicated, without more proof that something of archaeological value exists.
Right.
But no, I imagine he does a lot of like stab the pick as hard as he can into the dirt and then pull up the dirt and see what he broke.
At this point, it's pretty clear he's been looking for a while.
Right.
But not hard.
Not hard. He's like, look, I just wanted the money first, and then I was gonna look.
Yeah. But why? So this was a big thing for me. So
okay.
Rand was running away with a notepad. The ancient Indian village was marked on the map on the things he was carrying, but he doesn't know that there's an ancient Indian village there yet because he hasn't found it yet. I just don't know. But it was on the note that he had. Yeah. So. Because he seems kind of clueless about the whole thing, it being there or not. But they got their only lead about it being there from him, and then he seems surprised when they later tell him. I was kind of confused about the whole, like, who knew first kind of thing. But
they do see a guy digging around the pond, and they think it must be Professor Rand.
Oh, this is later?
And no, this is like right after they find the note. After tucking the papers in his pocket, Frank led the way toward the pond. Then they spot a tall figure digging, stooping to examine the spade. That must be Professor Rand, Joe whispered.
So they just, again, run after him.
Yeah. Well, he says, Frank's like, let's go get him.
That worked before.
Frank actually holds him back. And Joe's like, what's the matter? We've been trying to catch up with him for days. And he's like, it's not the right time. He's doing his best to hide his activities besides dodging us. And we're like, it took you this many tries for that to stick out to you?
Yeah. I mean, it took one... I'd say negative experience.
Like a knife fight.
Or like a fun house.
A fun house where a woman almost had a stroke.
Yeah, and then they learned from their mistakes for the first time in, what is this, 12? Book 12?
Book 12. Yeah. Yep. They're finally learning a lesson. They decide to go to the library, because that's where you research things.
Well, they go to the library. They tell Chet to go find food.
Yeah, they say, Chet, go get some food. We're going to go to the library.
That would be that's meal 7.
Frank has another idea. Because they said, why don't we trail Blackstone? Why don't we trail Mr. Cutter? Let's follow one of the people involved with this. And he's like, no, I have a different idea. I think we ought to look for Hidden Harbor from the air.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
Isn't that great?
They've gone in airplanes before, right? And only like...
Lots of times.
10% of the time has it not resulted in some sort of crash landing.
It's rare enough that on bingo, one of the bingo squares is a plane ride where nothing happens. Because it's rare. The chances are pretty slim. So they go...
Yeah, okay.
He's like, what'll you do for a plane? Chet asked.
I
engage Al West.
I started that. I started with Al West, and with a plane, I wrote, this plane is going to fucking crash.
Yep.
I wrote that down in the book.
But Al West, I think, is it one of the pilots from Bayport?
No.
He's not.
I mean, he is from Bayport, but isn't he the one who saved them with the seaplane?
Oh, that's right.
So
it just happened to be a pilot they already knew. Yeah, but they're flying the plane, and all of a sudden, the plane just... For some minutes, the ship gained altitude. Then, without warning, it lurched violently to port side and nose down.
Which, at this point, like without warning, is it's hard to believe.
You know? Yeah, exactly. They're getting in a plane and they're like, okay.
Like, don't check anything before we go. Let's go.
Let's just go now.
Because clearly they didn't check. There's something really obvious, right, that was broken.
But then, Al West said it's a controller error later, but he's just passed out. They're like, what's wrong? And they're like, Al West is unconscious.
And then Joe screams, good night in acceptance of their death. Like, he screams, good night, you know? Like, good night. What kind of last words are those? Like, oh my gosh, yeah, it was, he yelled the second line here, good night, Joe.
Good night, Joe yelled?
I think then he just, like, his eyes glazed over and he went limp. Like, this was it for him.
So, they don't know why Al is passed out all of a sudden. I was like, was he poisoned? No,
well, he's a pilot, so he can't handle any sort of change in altitude.
Right, exactly. I guess what turned out happens is that when the plane dipped, he bonked his head real hard on the window and passed out.
You think so? That's so
what
sad.
It says. It says,
don't take the Hardy Boys around.
Frank was thrown against the pilot, who slammed sideways into the cockpit window.
Holy shit.
Frank has to fly the airplane, which in an earlier book, he's like, I can't fly an airplane. I was like, just try. You're probably going to be fine. Yeah. And he does do a pretty good job. But Al does wake up in time to, like, land the plane.
Yeah. Also,
and then he says it was control failure, which makes it sound like
something really clearly wrong with it.
Yeah.
I liked that when they were describing how the plane was crashing, Franklin Dixon used a really great use of analogy, which is sweat stood out on his forehead as the wooded swamp beneath them seemed to rush upward.
It seemed to.
It seemed to. So the ground was getting closer. So that's a really good analogy, is that the ground was seeming to rush upward. I just didn't like how that was phrased. I was like, well, of course.
Because you're crashing towards the ground. The ground is rushing upwards towards your position.
Yeah, it's all relative.
The stabilizer cable was cut. Sabotage, Joe exclaimed.
Stabilizer cable.
Yeah, so he's like, I'll just fix the stabilizer cable real quick.
And then get back in the plane.
They do. They get back in the plane right as he's fixed the damage. Al brought out his toolkit and quickly fixed the damaged cable.
When they climbed out, shaken by their close brush with death, oh, here's your trouble, and then let's fix it and get back up there.
All right, let's get back up in the air.
Yeah, and of course, weather channels and weather reports don't exist at this point, so they just go back up there without...
But he does look at the dark clouds and say, storm's coming up. I guess we still have time to look around before it hits.
Did Chet say that? Because Chet knows clouds now, right?
No, he doesn't mention it. It's Al who notices and is like...
I thought Chet had a whole book where he learned about
He did learn all about clouds, but the things Chet learns never come up again. I was hoping he would have something in this book that would be useful.
He learned how to cook in this book.
He knows how to cook. He's been cooking all the time.
Yeah.
They have left Chet at camp, and they say, I hope Chet nails things down at camp, because apparently... Oh, Al says he'd better. Haven't you heard? Hurricane warnings have been out since last night.
Tell Chet that. Don't just tell him, make sure to, push down the tent extra hard with your weight and stay there. Tell him, go to town.
There's a hurricane.
Pack up your things. Go get it. Go away.
They fly up in the air, and they convince... they look down. They see the mansions. They see the pond. They see the little boat that's out in the water, this, spy boat that they spied on earlier.
Well, they don't see the harbor.
No, they don't see a hidden harbor.
But
they said, what would a boat be doing in there, in the pond? They see a rowboat going out into the pond. And he's like, yeah, let's go down and find that man.
This is the 7-page smuggling story.
Oh, that's right.
Never gets referenced again. I like this. So let's go through this little mystery now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so they land.
Okay.
Because they saw the man with a boat, and they are like, oh, that's good enough to land a plane for. Let's just go and talk to him.
Well, first they ask if he can set them down on the ground. And he says, apprehensively, he checked the cloudy skies.
He's
okay.
not sure about any of this.
I guess, but when the storm hits, it's going to be a honey. We'll have to get this ship to her hangar long before that. And they're like, okay, well, we need you to land it now in a hurricane.
Yep.
It'll be fine. Yeah,
and,
but anyway.
And then he's like, well, I'm a pilot, and I've spent a lot of time in the sky, but I'll trust these two boys.
Yeah, that happens to these pilots a lot.
They saved my unconscious body and then stabilized my plane, and I went back with them for no reason. But yeah, they land, and then they basically are trying to find where that guy was going, and so they kind of go deeper into this really well described swamp. I like how they describe the Spanish moss and the hanging vines.
Joe tastes the water, the swamp water, and he's like, fresh water.
Stop tasting stagnant ponds. The beef broth was a start, but
better than beef broth.
Yeah, so they sneak up on this guy, and he's capturing baby alligators from
putting them in a bag.
Putting them in a bag from a little nest under from a little nest under this swamp tree.
That's illegal, Frank commented quietly.
Yeah, he's like, that's illegal.
Joe's like, yeah.
And he hears them and shoots at them with a goddamn shotgun.
Yeah, he does. The next moment, he came up again, the blue shotgun barrel trained in the Hardy's direction. A blast and a puff of gray smoke followed rapidly. Deadly pellets ripped shreds in the hanging
these are
moss.
deadly pellets. They've gotten shot at with salt before, and with pistol guns.
Yeah,
this is the first time
someone's pointed a shotgun at them and pulled the trigger. They call it peppering. So they've been shot at with salt, and now they've been peppered.
Yep, salt. They're fully seasoned, ready for Chet.
Frank warned he may have another shell ready.
Yeah, which of course, a gun has more than one shell.
Smart,
good job.
Smart logic from Frank's part here, though. Better let him go if we don't want to get shot. Let's look at the alligator nest.
Yeah, why? What he was getting from there. You know that there's probably alligators living here. This is this logic of let's see what he was taking from the alligator nest, and it no longer has eggs in it.
You're it's sort of is that bear cub alone? Is that bear cub abandoned? I'm gonna go check out that bear cub.
Well, no, it's if you saw someone steal a bear cub and you're and they left before the mom came back and you're let's go where that bear cub was. There might still be
maybe I can leave a note for the mom.
And then what happens next is the mom comes back.
Yeah, they can't find Al West. They get all turned around.
This whole chapter, by the way, the whole last.
They're always 10 pages.
10-page chapter was called Alligator.
Alligator. It should have been called Plane Crash.
Yeah, and then the last 20 words is when the alligator comes.
My legs! They're caught in some vines!
He gasped. Stooping to aid his brother, Frank spotted a sudden movement on the surface of the stream. Then he recognized the snout of an alligator. The angry reptile was swimming straight towards Joe.
That's pretty
End
awesome.
scene. Yeah.
End scene.
So that's the alligator of this entire chapter.
Joe, in the next chapter, it starts with Joe, trapped, but I wrote Joe, who once killed a wolf with a big rock.
He did, I remember that.
Trapped,
poor wolf.
blanched when he caught sight of the oncoming alligator. And they basically used the same tactic that worked for the wolf. They pick up a huge log.
Yeah, 4-foot long stout log.
And then Frank just drops it, brings it down as hard as he can on the head of the alligator. The reptile rolled over, its short legs flailing helplessly.
Those are death throes. Oh my God, I feel so bad for this thing.
It didn't know. It thought they stole his baby.
So this, in the life of this alligator, let's go over this. So this mama alligator leaves the younglings. They're like, I'll be right back. Just gotta go get some fish, and then comes back. Her eggs are gone.
But there's
two boys are there.
Yeah.
Duh. She stole the eggs. She gets defensive. They throw a 4-foot long log on her head, and she dies. That's this whole story. I would rather read the story of the life of this alligator than these two psychopathic children.
They basically immediately find Al West, and he takes off in the hurricane because the storm's arriving ahead of schedule. And they're like, we got to get back and find Chet.
Which storms don't arrive ahead of schedule. Storms come when the dark cloud comes over your head. And
that's when the storm was scheduled.
Al is so trusting of these boys. They've lost a boat. They almost lost their second boat. And now he's giving them a plane that broke once.
Hey, I don't remember them ever taking the other rental boat back. I don't think they ever did. What did they do with it?
He forgot to tell them. He forgot to write in that they returned it. They never see the boat owner again. Oh my God. Don't worry. We'll buy tackle this time. We'll return it. And they don't. They just go fly. They go fly. That's amazing. I completely missed that. Don't worry. What about my last boat? Oh, don't worry. This time we'll return it. Oh my.
And there's a hurricane coming in, and he's just like, I'm never seeing that boat, am I?
It's probably just tied up somewhere, by that island that they were spying on the fishing boat.
Smash.
It's gonna get destroyed.
Oh God, I don't know. It drifted off.
Poor guy.
Yeah. So
they destroy the alligator, kill the.
They go to find Chet because he's had no warning. They can't find him.
No warning. He can see the sky.
They find that their tent is basically wrapped around a tree.
Right.
But there's no sign of Chet.
That's our tent. Yeah.
So they go to the underground passage to Rand's, which is the safest place, and of course that's where Chet's is.
Well, they almost missed the seaplane for Isabel. Al left without them.
Yeah.
Almost. He was like,
I was about to leave without you, alone in the swamp. Which would have been fair.
Yeah, that would have been fine.
But yeah, so they dodge being hit by a giant falling tree. They find Chet, and he's goofing around with Grover and Timmy.
That's right, and he's cooking another meal, hasn't
he? Another meal.
It's meal 7.
Mm-hmm. And he's wearing, bulky comical. He's wearing hat after hat, coat after coat, blanket after blanket, shirt after shirt. This is summer vacation in Georgia, and the boys took hats and coats.
Oh, yeah. Wait, what? Where is this?
This is on page 112 when they find Chet and he's taking off all their clothes and he's like, I couldn't carry everything, so I decided just to try to wear everything. Which seems like it would take longer. Or couldn't you have just used the tent as a big
monsoon season. I mean, you've got, this is a hot
But they all
place.
brought hats. I guess in case there was a formal event and they wanted to wear hats.
And they criticize, of course, he's like, Chet innocently points to a carton of groceries and so I brought everything I could. And Joe needles, which is he says,
yeah.
Why didn't you wear the tent too?
We just saw it blow away.
So mean.
What
are you gonna do with the tent? It blew away in a monsoon. That's what tents do. They just this is just
now you're in a shelter. Hey, how lucky are you?
He got your food. He brought your clothes.
Yeah, but not the tent. God, Chet.
They're like these teenage boys, as if he's like Mom.
Where's our tent?
I brought you boys some food, and they cooked you a meal. Mom, I want the tent. Yeah, they're just very they just don't appreciate their friend. Why is he their friend?
I think Grover has to do this weird, like, old person one-upping thing.
Where's that?
That's on 113, where they're like, Chet's like, man, some storm. These boys have probably never experienced a hurricane before.
Oh, that's not just one-upmanship. That's important for the story.
It is a clue, but it's coached in one of those, like, you know, oh, man, I got a really bad flu this week. I had a flu when I was a girl, and I was in bed for 3 months. The doctors didn't think I would live.
Yeah.
But no, this is him. They're like, it was some storm. And Grover says, sure, but I reckon it's not so bad as the one Grandpappy used to tell me about when he was a mite of a boy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Which means that his family has definitely worked for the Blackstone since before emancipation.
Yeah. Yep, and after, which is, not much happened there.
Yeah.
Nobody
the waves
could recognize
were as big
the
as houses.
Yeah,
nobody could recognize the place.
That's
after.
the important part. Is that
I wrote clue.
Right, climate change is real.
Yep,
They knew in the 50s.
Yep, that storms could change the environment or change the topography of land. Yeah, it caused an awful, powerful, a lot of damage.
Oh, and then this whole interaction with Timmy is so weird.
Yeah, Timmy's got something, and they're like, I want whatever's Timmy's got.
Yeah.
He's got something that seems precious to him, and they decide they need to take it from Timmy. And
That's so sad, and he's so shy about it.
He's like, no, I don't want.
Joe Coach's like, come on, I won't hurt it. Cross my heart. And then he's like, takes it. He just tricks him into stealing what this boy has.
Let's all take something out of our pocket that we don't really want. Which,
I have an idea that what is that game? That's not a game.
It's not a game. Let's all see what's in our pocket. We can each take out one thing we don't really want, and then we can pick which thing we want. And I'm like, I don't really carry stuff in my pockets that I don't want. Like, I want all this stuff in my pocket.
And the boy
That's
doesn't
why I
see,
put it in my pocket.
The boy doesn't connect that the boys just looked at what he had and he put it back in his pocket
said,
like, let's play a game. That's so weird.
But
it's not
a
good idea.
What do they offer him though? Chet has a chocolate bar and a lucky rabbit's foot.
Yeah. And
they take Chet's stuff and make him give it to this boy so that they can take the boy's Indian hide scraper.
Which is worth a lot. That kid could have sold that for food and shelter.
No. Now you have a chocolate bar and the lucky
scraper.
rabbit's
foot.
foot.
So he trades chocolate and something like an animal's foot for this awesome Indian hide scraper, this.
But now they know that Timmy knows where the Indian artifacts are.
Right, and Timmy tells them willingly, oh, I found it over there, and it's yours now because you got it from me fair and square.
Right where it was circled on the map with the words Indian Village labeled on it earlier in the book.
And he asked him, are you sure you want to part with these? At least that's nice. He's like, are you sure you want to give these to us? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, give me chocolate. And they're like, haha, gotcha.
Oh my gosh, it's so mean.
Yeah, they're mean. And then Frank is just like, oh, I found Hidden Harbor.
What?
He just decides at the end of the chapter that he knows that the pond is Hidden Harbor because that storm probably...
He listened to the words that
the other guy said when he was talking, which is what good detective work is. You listen to the words that the other people that are talking say. You don't just sit and absentmindedly wait for them to shut up so that you can tell about the storm your grandpappy talked about. Which is how, a lot of people would have handled that.
That's how he found out, so...
Yeah, so they find out that, the pond used to be connected
Harbor,
to the
which
ocean.
is I knew from the start.
Yeah.
It's the only body of water they were ever around.
Yeah, that's the Hidden Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that the storm...
They should have guessed that.
The storm probably revealed the inlet, right?
Yeah. That's I think what it was.
Okay.
They decide we're going to need our skin diving gear again. And they said they put it in the trunk of the car. But when they go out to the car is almost completely... Oh, no, they go find the car. And, yeah, it's totally covered
Things get rushed from here on out.
It starts picking up pace pretty quick. Yeah. But they find that the car is completely submerged in sand, and they dig it out, and then they clean all of the spark plugs and
they
the
really
pistons,
do some maintenance time.
And they get the car fired up. I don't know. At some point, they're back on Blackstone's property, and they overhear him shouting at Cutter, being like, "I'm not going to sell my pond to you."
Right.
And you realize Cutter's trying to buy the land from either one of them.
Right, obviously. But then they're like, Blackstone's up to no good.
Yeah, no shit.
Because they heard him
shouting.
Club
a man.
They obviously suspect him because he clubbed. Yeah, he did club a man. But Cutter is there, and he's in the he's employing the people that just tried to kill them. But they're somehow mad at Blackstone after this. They
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like it really makes them.
They're like, I don't know what's going on anymore. Let's follow Blackstone.
Right, but they go to the pond with their fishing with their
skin diving
equipment. It's an unsuccessful dive. They realize that they need metal detectors, right? And
and dynamite.
Oh no! Wait, is it this?
They don't need dynamite.
They don't need dynamite yet. They just need some metal detectors.
They said they needed to go get a metal detector, and I was like, check for bombs. Remember when that guy wired a bomb to your metal detector and Chet was in an explosion? Yeah, they accidentally left the metal detector at a restaurant.
This is heavier than usual.
Yeah. And then they went and picked it up. And then as they were driving, they all jumped out of the car, but Chet got burns all down his back.
Yeah,
and was in bed for weeks. And then he stopped talking about metal detectors.
But they want to get one again. Like, I'm sure that when they said, like, let's get metal detectors, he, like, flinched.
And then Chet's like, let's go eat. I haven't eaten in ages. And they're like, Chet, who wants to eat when we can spend a profitable hours looting Indian relics?
Why eat when you can loot the dead?
And he's like, relics? You can't eat a relic. You can eat the dead, Chet.
You can eat the desiccants.
The desiccants. Let's see. Oh, yeah, that's right.
There's a stump. That's right.
There's a stump. Mm-hmm. And that's where they find pottery, flat, dime-sized, a bird point, a small fine arrowhead for killing birds.
Thanks for the archaeology lesson. Now let's steal everything.
Now let's take it all. Let's pocket it. And then they let's leave some stuff here because we don't want to take it all. They'll think we faked it. Let's just take enough to prove that we found this site.
Right.
And maybe some souvenirs.
Right.
Right. And then, they disturb the relics. That chapter doesn't end on a cliffhanger.
Wait, is their car still full of sand? Is this?
No, they cleaned out all the... Oh, no, that's when they get back.
That's when they get back.
They try to start the sand, and there's a ton of sand in there.
They start the sand.
And they wipe the spark plugs, check the wiring for short circuits.
Right, a page of maintenance.
Yeah, of car maintenance.
They update Bart Worth on everything that is worth telling him.
Right.
And then...
And they go to the office, and it's like hopping, right?
Yeah,
everyone's at work making a newspaper. Doesn't seem like it was before. But whatever. I thought there was suddenly going to be some sort of crazy new thing happening there, but...
Yeah, no, it was just a newspaper place.
Yep.
They told him, about that they probably found a treasure and
that the pond.
They're going to find it. Everything that's worth listening into, right?
Yeah.
Which someone listens.
Someone listens into the whole thing. It's the sort of thing don't they open the door and there's a guy right outside the door who's like, oh!
Yeah, and he's like,
hey, I'm gonna go. Yeah, let's see. They leave Chet behind for some reason.
I think it's just because he doesn't want to go with them anymore.
One little thing.
He just says, I'll stay behind and run errands. That's right, because Jenny sent a letter to them, or sent a letter to the office, saying, wanting to meet with them.
Oh, right.
Right, she can't come, apparently she can't come in person, even though,
but she's
this town is presumably small. She's like,
hey, Mr. Worth, also, and bring the Hardy Boys, but come to this random hotel in Sea City. Not a trap. Swear it. I promise.
Hashtag not a trap.
Hashtag not a trap.
Back then meant pound key or number.
Yeah. Pound symbol, not a...
It's a little historian lesson for you.
Pound symbol, not a trap.
It's...
and they go there,
it's such a trap.
They show up and they're like,
and they all know, but they're still not.
They're
cautious.
I'm pretty sure it's a trap. And Burt Worth is like, I don't know, maybe it's not a trap.
They didn't tell him. They're like,
it for sure is a trap.
Did they tell him?
I don't know. I think they say it's probably a trap.
Because he's the one that gets the butt, the butt end.
And they keep telling him to be on guard and not be alone and not go with anybody. And he's like, okay. And they're like, we're gonna look around. Just stay out here on this porch and keep watch. And then a man steps out of the hotel and is like, Mr. Worth, there's a call for you inside. And he's like, okay. And he comes inside.
Well, hold on. First, they actually go... before all this, the reason I was like, wait, don't they know? Is because they went to Jenny's house.
Oh, yeah. And Jenny's like, no.
I don't know what you're talking about. So they know 100% now that this is a trap that's trying to lure them in. And they take the bait still. They don't just not go. Why do they not... Why don't they call the police over there?
Their plan is to, let's figure out who set this trap. But not by getting caught. Their plan is they're just going to, poke around.
That's right.
But it's that, this Mr. Worth is just
that they were called to. That's just doing the trap. That's
doing the trap. They just do the trap. But Mr. Worth, knowing it's a trap, they're like, sir, there's a phone call for you. And he's like, okay. And he gets up and he goes inside.
Okay.
And they're like, here, it's back in this back room. Pass down these stairs. All right, in this small room. And then they get him on the back of the head.
They get him.
So the boys come back out, and they're like, God damn it, where is he?
He's gone.
Oh, he got got.
And
then they come out, and they're like,
well,
boys.
First they're like, maybe he went back to the car, and then he's like, no.
No. And then the guy comes out, and he's like, boys, there's a phone call for you. And they're like,
okay.
Again,
this guy.
And so,
wait, do we ever understand who this is? Is he just like a...
He's a guy who works at the hotel, who they later find out has been bribed by the criminals.
Right.
And then they talk to the hotel owner, and he's like, I don't know, they all left. I'm like, how much did they bribe him with? That he's like, they bribed him enough money he was willing to quit his job.
To lure children and
into
he's going to jail.
Yeah, exactly.
He's an accomplice.
How much money did they did they pay this guy? Because they just said that he's just
and
a
if
bellman.
things had gone well and he got murdered, like that's no way to lose your life. It's just to, like, get paid like $20 to say, like, there's a phone call for you, because he knew. Like,
he knew it was something bad was going to happen to these teenage boys.
Um,
Frank and Joe Hardy, telephone call for you in the back hall. It's by the stairs.
yeah, it's by.
So they know what's up. They go to take the
I
trap.
love this next scene.
And Frank's like, I'll go alone. Because if it's a trap, you can come save me. And they're like, okay, I'll go up the main staircase and look for backstep next to the phone. But it actually works pretty well.
Well, they see
That Jed's
Cutter's
been-
partner, like, around there too.
Yeah, they see Stuart
Like,
as like
what's
apparently
he doing
working
here?
at the hotel. They're like, does he work here?
Like, the guy's the person that's trying to kill us, his partner, is here for some reason. The antique business must be bad. And you're like, what?
I'd kind of like to read some of this awesome action on
All
133.
right, let's do it. This is one of my favorite.
Um,
One of my favorite, because it's called enemy tactics, but there are none in this chapter. Frank, says he'll take the call. He goes up this, like, dingy hallway with a little tiny window, and he's like, oh, there's, like, an old-time telephone. And he picks up the receiver, and he's, like, going to answer the call. And he, like, realizes that all the doors are closed around him, so it's fine. Watching the door carefully, he reached the telephone. Frank stood listening intently. The old hotel was almost unnaturally quiet. Suddenly, the young sleuth stiffened. From behind the open door came the familiar sound of hoarse, wheezy breathing.
Jed.
Frank thought. Deliberately, the boy turned his back. At the same time, he grasped the telephone cord in his right hand. His straining ears caught a footfall on the carpet. Whirling, Frank swung the heavy receiver by its cord and caught the flat-faced man a smashing blow to the ear. With a cry of pain, the angered thug lurched forward and seized Frank's right arm in an iron grip. Frank immediately sent 3 chopping left jabs into the fellow's midriff. Nice. Now another figure came racing down the dim hallway. "Stuart!"
Got him!
he cried, reaching Frank and pinning the boy's arm behind his back. At the same instant, there was a screeching whoop from above.
Woo!
Both assailants' heads jerked upward. Joe Hardy had vaulted onto the backstairs banister and slid down full speed, crashing feet first against the burly man's chest. Frank wrenched free, landed a stiff uppercut on Stewart's jaw. Fist fight ensues here.
Yeah.
I just love, my favorite part is when
That
he's
Joe
like,
slides down the banister.
that part is great, classic. But just like when he's like taking the call and pretending to take the call, he hears like, he like knows who, like, this guy's the worst spy.
Yeah.
So far his repertoire of listening in on people is grabbing ketchup from their table so they notice him. Screaming, "Help me," knocking them out, and then doing nothing about
And
it.
running
the wrong boys off the road, probably murdering them. Like, what?
Trying to knife fight them in a fun house.
What a goon. This guy doesn't know what he's doing, and now he, like, is trying to listen in on Joe, and he can't control his own breathing. Like, he can't just, like, hold his breath for 15 seconds. Go see a doctor.
They escape from all this place. They rescue Bart, and he says, sorry to get myself
Where is he
caught.
again? He's, like, tied in like, a closet.
Yeah, they find him in. They throw a big hamper of clothes at the bad guy. That's how they get away, because they're all wrapped up in sheets. But they
They hamper his efforts, you could say.
Oh, you didn't have to, though. But Bart says, sorry to get myself caught like that, but I told my office they could reach me here if I received important phone call
Oh
later.
my God, don't tell them that.
So I really fell for it when the bellman paged me.
We're
And I
so
just
much better
wrote,
off with cell phones.
F you, man.
Yeah.
We told you. You should have just been like, I'll be in a moment. I'll call them back. Anything. Or just don't tell anyone where you're going. Yeah, so they find out it was a trick. I wrote obvious trap is obvious.
Yep, I think I wrote the exact same thing. Hold on. Let me consult my notes. I wrote, so he uppercuts. There's like a classic Yakety Sax chase where they're running between rooms, and I was like playing that, like doing it.
Yeah, they're like running back and forth in the hallway.
It's like between the rooms and secret rooms, yeah.
Sometimes they're wearing each other's clothes.
That's right, and this is the first time they're like, oh, maybe we should go to the police.
Yeah, then they decide to go to the... Well, the last time they went to the police, he just told the person they were accusing.
Well,
to
they
be on the
returned, and I
lookout.
wrote that they returned back to the hotel, like this presumably several hours later, and the guys are gone, which, like, duh. But is there no such thing as, like, a warrant? Like, ugh.
And the bellman, whom the men had evidently had bribed, had fled. The manager, who doubled as a clerk, had been away during the fracas.
Right.
Oh,
So
great.
at this point they know they haven't they're with the police, but they didn't tell them, like, we saw Mr. Cutter talking about his plans to kill us. Also, we saw the antique dealer. Like, they didn't tell him who these, like, very well-known people around town were. Like, they get away because, like, these people get away with a lot after this. Like,
Yeah.
the people that
If they
assaulted
just
them
would've-
that had previously still assaulted them, like, and that they went to the police. They didn't tell the police like, oh, you know that antique dealer and the guy that like is always around this like small, probably 1,000-person town.
They tried to kill us.
They tried to kill us, and they're an accomplice with these 3 people, and we can draw them for you if you want.
No. Okay, it's time to check in. I don't think I have anything really
All right.
new.
I'm gonna have a
secret passageway.
Do they go back to Chet? They like make sure he's okay and no, that's right. So, okay. So
yeah,
the
they
first
think
thing,
that
the night they're good friends. The first thing they think when they like come back is like,
Chet's gone.
well, they just tried to kill us. Chet's not in town anymore. Like he might be in danger.
Yeah, we should find Chet. But then Chet shows up and he's like, "Oh, sorry guys, I left my post. I just got bored and went to the movies." Which normally you'd be like, "F you, Chet."
Yeah.
But in this situation, you're like, "No, smart move, buddy." Like, because you were about to be murdered, and instead you went to the movies.
Well, they come back to the camp first to try to find Chet, and all their stuff is ruined. Their tent has been
slashed up.
You know, every the tent was in ribbons. They used a knife for that. Like, there's like
I imagine the sort of thing where
everywhere.
they took a loaf of bread and like squished it into a ball.
I mean, it says a scene of devastation, such as that caused by the hurricane met their eyes. These guys were like really tearing through their camp. They were really mad.
They were pissed about this whole thing. But Chet's fine.
Yeah, he's fine.
And quickly, they find out that from little Timmy that Mr. Blackstone, they're back on the property, and Mr. Blackstone has been pulled into the water by the monster. Do you remember that?
I thought they see that happen, don't they?
Oh, I thought that they just hear like they hear help.
Yeah, Timmy saw that.
Let's see. Yeah, and it's Grover and Timmy, and they run back and forth, wailing and looking in panic towards the water. Quick! Cried Timmy as Joe comes up. Some devil just pulled Mr. Blackstone under the water.
And which brings us to the underwater prison chapter.
Which I don't really understand why it was called that.
I think it's because like the treasure is in a.
Oh, okay.
Like
they save Mr. Blackstone immediately.
They save them
Joe does
really fast.
Aquaman,
but he was again unconscious underwater, and he doesn't have the trick where he can hold his breath till he
blacks out. So it's amazing.
He's a big guy. Like apparently they can just bring him back up.
Yep, they pull him up. Their lungs bursting. They bear the unconscious man to the surface, and then Chet wades over to help. And I'm like, Chet, do not make this man drink beef broth.
Well, first they administer artificial respiration, which I love that word. They get some with him.
Yeah, exactly. Lip action. Mr. Blackstone, sputtered and shoved the boys away from him.
Yeah, and he gets really mad.
Get off of me!
He's like, "Oh, this guy who's released his hound. Like, this is not a good guy."
No, they should have probably just let him go down.
He been like, "Oh well, the monster got him."
But then a bunch of Mr. Blackstone's servants carrying flashes, blankets, and axes, and are led by little Timmy, who rallied the troops, I guess. They cut some saplings and they make a stretcher, and then they carry Blackstone back to the house.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they make a stretcher, which.
Couldn't they have just gone and got a stretcher?
Yeah. Also, I don't imagine the house being too far from this pond.
Mm-hmm. Just carry him by his shoulders and his feet.
It would take me, like,
an hour
estimate, even with a team, an hour or two.
Yeah.
To make, like, a
stretcher that could carry a person.
Yeah. And this is a big guy. They make a stretcher for him. They think that's the priority is to make to do a little crafting.
Blackstone, he thinks it was Rand, but they know it wasn't Rand because they just saw Rand, right?
Well, it's because he says, like, Rand did it.
Rand did it. And they're like, no, he didn't. We saw him right before this happened. He was nowhere near you.
Yeah. Well, because he sent the note to, like, tell him, like, meet at the pond. We'll talk over our differences.
Right, and they find out that the note's a fake, like all letters from Rand.
Every single letter that they've
Why did they fall for that? Yeah, it's all been a fake. So they go talk to and they confront Rand about it, and he basically they're like, somebody tried to drown Mr. Blackstone, and he's like, oh, what? No. He's like, no, I don't like the guy. I wouldn't drown him.
He's surprised because he should be. He didn't do it.
Yeah, and they said the boys then told of someone locking them in Rand's room. The professor's startled reaction convinced them he had not done it.
Yeah, like convinced immediately.
What?
Yeah, what? Oh,
locked him in my house?
Well, I guess it wasn't you.
Yeah, he seems
we saw you running
surprised.
away after we locked in the room, but I'm sorry that we concluded that
it was you. A scoundrel followed me in and out of my house.
Yeah, so someone was snooping around his house, locked on the door.
It was a close shave, Joe murmured. You were fine.
Well, he has got a nice sapling stretcher.
So they tell him they're going to trade him the location of the Indian village.
That's right.
Which he already knows.
Which he already knows.
But anyway, they're going to trade him the location of the Indian village for
He like thinks it over. He's like, well, you know where it is.
And I don't. And they're like, can you imagine them sharing a listing? Like, don't remind him.
Wasn't it him? Did we get that?
It was
from
his
him?
map.
It was
yeah.
his map.
But they're like, don't let him know that we know that he knows. But then, and they're like, and you have to tell us where the treasure chest is. And he's like, I'm like, well, he doesn't know. But then he's like, I do know. It's under a specific cypress tree that's at the mouth of Hidden Harbor.
Wait, so why did he know that?
I don't know. He says his grandmother told him that it was in a letter.
Yeah, but...
Wait. So you've been looking for this treasure to
his
fund,
whole life.
And you're going to try to fund this archaeological dig, and you know where it is, but you don't go looking for it? He's like, I know where the Indian village is. I don't go looking for that either. I'm a strange man.
He's a strange man. Oh, Dr. Rand, you lone bachelor in your abandoned mansion.
So Frank dives down to find it with the metal detector.
Which immediately knows where he's like, oh, that
one over there, and then the metal detector confirms it. Mm-hmm. But the
which do they work underwater?
I have no idea. I don't know. Like,
I wrote like, how do metal detectors work? I was actually really curious because like, how much circuitry is in there? Like, are they just gonna like jump in and be like, no,
that's what I thought. Like in his ears, or like even if you get like modern
powered,
if you get like modern earbuds wet and they like crackle and they zap you in the ear and you're like, oh, these are broken, gotta throw those away.
It's over here. It's also over here. It's also over here. Like,
it just sets off a
don't work
constant
underwater.
sound. But anyway, he finds a wooden chest with the metal detector.
Yeah, that's right.
And he can't. And then he says, "Oh, this box must be made out
of metal."
He's like, the box must be made out of cypress wood.
Just one word difference.
To protect a metal chest. So he thinks it's a double layered thing.
Okay.
But he can't move the chest out of where it's trapped under this tree. And then he accidentally gets caught. And then he accidentally cuts his own line.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then he's like,
he doesn't even need criminals for him to die. He just needs.
And then he says, and then he thinks Joe and the others expect him to stay down for a while. Unless I can signal, they won't come after me until it's too late.
Which, like, that wasn't in their plan. Be like, hey, if someone, like, if just like what's happened the 3 previous times we've dived in this pond, if someone goes after you, you need a way to reach us. There's no, like, line he can tug or something.
No, they have this weird plan where he pulls out a white ping pong ball from a pocket that he has.
Why does he have a
because it's a plan they worked out.
Oh, it was the plan.
It's never, but they say it was a trouble signal the Hardy Boys had worked out, but they didn't tell us that.
No,
so it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, it does.
It's the Ready Player One thing.
It's the,
where they're like, where
retrospect plans?
Yeah, exactly. Where they're like, but weeks ago I planned this, so it was fine.
Yeah, it's a good thing that everything that happens I have figured out. But
yeah, already.
You don't know that.
You didn't know that.
So
that's a great way to tell a compelling narrative.
He's holding his breath again. You know, he can probably do it for 2 to 3 minutes before he passes out.
Yeah, well, that's his plan. Hold my breath till I black out.
He like, boop.
So Chet's like, there's a white bubble. And he's like, no, that's a ping pong ball. And so they dive in. He cuts.
Why can't he swim up? Is he stuck?
He's stuck. He caught his legs on the roots and then cut his own airline. On accident with a knife.
He went from being really good at swimming underwater to like really clumsy. Like getting caught in roots is hard enough because roots are like stationary. You know, like you can see things underwater.
Yeah.
But also, are they opening their eyes in swamp water? Like they don't have vision goggles.
They have a diving mask. Yeah. But then he's like kicking around trying to free himself, and he accidentally slices or disconnects his own own airline.
Okay.
So Joe gets him out, and they're like, you know what? We can't get this.
There's too many roots.
The boys suggested that they obtain dynamite and return the following day.
God, it's just the worst idea. Like, there are things called saws that can cut through things underwater. Like,
come on,
a really
Patrick.
Good way to get rid of
dynamite. They say no stores will be open because it's Sunday, so we'll have to wait till Monday to go to the dynamite store.
This is a dynamite store.
Okay. The trio decided to enlist the editor's help in obtaining the dynamite. They went to his office and told of their discovery at the pond. Highly excited, Bart was glad to accompany the trio to make the purchase.
Anything to retrieve that chest,
he exclaimed as they entered Larchmont's only hardware store. Bart made his request to an elderly clerk.
Dynamite! Hey!
The shopkeeper repeated in a loud voice of surprise. Other customers turned to look.
One thing we don't have. Just a minute, though.
The clerk went to the cellar doorway and shouted down the stairs.
Henry! Folks here need some dynamite. Know where they may get some.
Uneasily, the Hardys, Chet, and Bart glanced at the curious faces around them.
What say?
Came a voice from the cellar.
Dynamite!
Roared the clerk.
Folks here want to do a little blasting.
Keep going.
Oh, dynamite!
Henry shouted back.
They can get it in Dobbsville. Thanks very much,
said Bart, and the four hastily left the store.
Yeah, that whole interaction. So you think?
And Joe's like, and I love Joe says, well, if anyone in town doesn't know we need dynamite, they will in a few minutes.
So even they realize like that was a lot. That like we've gotten eavesdropped before, but that was
dynamite.
That was a lot.
What? Say dynamite.
Folks here want to do a little blasting. Yeah. So
I like how they the guy who does sell them the dynamite is like, you fellas know how to handle this stuff, and Frank just says, Dad taught us about explosives.
Like, are you 18? I don't know. You don't need a license for high explosives. Like, we just need some. This is before bad things happened, apparently, in the world.
And you boys know how to use dynamite. Sure, yeah, fine. We know how to use dynamite.
Did they ask that? Oh, and then he says the name of the chapter. That's my favorite part. He says dangerous cargo.
Dangerous cargo, says
and
Chet.
Then the name
Chet
of the
gets
chapter
them all
for
giant
all of you listeners is
dangerous cargo. Dangerous cargo. Chet goes and gets gigantic sandwiches.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's meal number 9.
Some submarine sandwiches. Maybe that could count. I don't think that counts as a submarine.
Well, yeah, that's really great.
He does specifically say. And then they're hanging out eating, and then Joe's like, I smell something burning. I hear a loud hissing noise.
It's like the classic.
Yeah. And they run around to the trunk of the car, and the dynamite has been, like, someone stuck a fuse in it and lit it.
I'm just imagining. Oh, I mean, there's no other way to imagine this besides like the classic Acme dynamite with the fuse in the end.
Yeah, and then the guy, rather than getting back into the car, just ran into the woods.
Well, okay, go back.
Okay. I think it's.
I think they do say submarine sandwiches. I know it's a stretch, but it does say just a submarine, and it's not like they don't just say sandwiches. They do specifically. Hold on, they do say. Not just Hardy sandwiches, but he has submarine sandwiches. No.
Here's the place for our submarine sandwiches.
Yeah. That I don't have it on my... I mean, I do have a bingo card.
Well,
I would be willing to say that a submarine sandwich is a submarine.
If it's my last one, then I'll give it to myself, and I'll give myself an asterisk in the Hall of Fame. Great. So they put the dynamite out. It's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing bad really happens.
No, that was exactly, 30 words of horror. They're like, the dynamite. And then they're like...
My God. Oh, no, it's fine. You can just take
imagine,
the fuse.
like, standing there, like, and then they just, like, take the string
fuse
out.
Yeah, and it's fine. He yanked the string and he flung it from the car.
Aren't there better ways to light dynamite? Like with a fuse that doesn't make noise?
Maybe not at this point. They said it was a string. It was a crude string fuse.
I can imagine it was probably Raspy Breath that did it.
Yeah.
Failure number 8 for him. Like as they like put out the dynamite, they hear like, oh, dang it, yeah, like
as he runs.
I swear this would work. He's running away. It's because he's somewhere nearby. Obviously.
Gotta be kidding me. So they say Operation Dynamite's underway.
Yeah.
And then they go to this place that they know is directly next to an Indian a site covered in Indian relics.
There's like bodies there, you know.
Yeah, exactly, and they're
gonna
let's
instead
blow
of like use a saw to get rid of some like tangly branches. They're gonna like use some dynamite, which like might destroy. Like this is like 100-year-old metal and wood box. Like dynamite can blast through mountains.
Like, hopefully it's fine. But my thing is that they're going to set off the dynamite, and then a lot of corpses from this Indian village are just going to float to the top.
And like fish corpses, alligator corpses. Like there's going to be a lot of detritus.
Oh, no.
You know? Oh, it's so sad.
Yeah,
it's such a bad idea.
They do, but it works fine.
No, dynamite never works. I mean, dynamite's never a good
There
idea.
she blows, Joe sang out. A sudden agitation showed on the water's surface, as if a geyser had gushed from below.
Okay.
And then a bunch of dead trees float up to the top, and the
Before they blast it, they know a lot about dynamite. So they describe in a whole paragraph, longer than the whole fuse situation, of like how they like took the blasting cap and put the charge near the base of the tree trunk, but at sufficient distance, not too distant to damage the thing. Like, where did these boys learn about?
I don't know.
Dynamite?
Every book has one of these things where I write stupid satellite stuff, stupid weather stuff, stupid dynamite stuff, stupid clockwork stuff, stupid, like, I don't care. why did you waste half of a page teaching me about dynamite?
It was a long
when
time.
I
Or
know
like how to clean sand out of a car.
But like I know that this is all wrong, and like if I found my car submerged in sand and I dug out all the sand and then tried to wipe off the spark plugs, it wouldn't start still.
The things wouldn't go back where they came from.
Right. So
okay, so they blow it up. You know, the roots rise into the sunshine, then sink back.
They won't. Nobody. Frank's a jerk and won't let anybody open the chest because he actually is smart enough to know.
That?
His whole thing is like, if we open it and then bring it as evidence, they will say, well, you put this stuff in the chest.
Right.
So it's not evidence of piracy because you tampered with it. So they're like, let's just go there and to the office and then invite Blackstone down and we'll all open it together.
Right. Okay. That makes, I wrote that. That makes sense to me.
And then Chet has to spend all day at the newspaper office, locked in a tiny office room. He even said, I don't know why. They're like, Blackstone, come out here. And he's like, look, I'll come out tomorrow night. And he's like, at 9:30.
Yeah, and he like shouts it probably because someone hears it. They're like, I'll come there at 9:30, dynamite.
And so they say, a disinterested person will stay at the office until then to guarantee that nobody tampers with the chest.
Who's a disinterested person? Their best friend, right?
Chet spoke up suspiciously. They grin at him, and he says, oh, no, all day and all night I have to stay in this little office?
With this, like, guy who hurt someone, and it's like this, he's not a good guy. I mean, he might be, like, not involved in the
murderer,
libel.
But we saw him knock a man unconscious, and they're like, you'll learn the newspaper trade. So they go to take Professor Rand to show him where the Indian village that he already knows about is.
When they see Cutter talking to Rand again. He's like, sell your land. And Rand's like, no.
No.
And they didn't warn him. How is Cutter still walking around at this point?
I know.
Did no one tell the police, like, hey, if you saw him around town, could you just, like, get him?
Hold him, 48-hour hold until we can, like, because he keeps trying to do the murdering.
And he's still trying to buy the land, like, legally. He's still like, let me buy it from you, because even though I tried to murder these kids, like, maybe there's still a good way to do this.
They think that Professor Rand, he disappears. They like see him get nabbed or something. Oh, he doesn't show up when he's supposed to meet them. They think maybe he went down to the pond early.
Or he runs away because I think they know Cutter is like
a bad guy. He
so
runs away
they
from
chase
Cutter.
him down. He's like, oh, there he's gone.
So they think.
Oh, it's like maybe he's
They
dead.
think that he got pulled into the water just like Blackstone is.
Rand got pulled into the water.
Yeah, they think that Rand went down to the pond to wait for them.
They quote them say maybe he's dead.
Yeah, maybe he's dead.
And they search the pond for his corpse because
and then,
there's a lot of those in there now.
And then all of a sudden, the monster fins like rise out of the water, and Joe shrieked. The next moment, something struck him on the back of his head, and he fell unconscious. So we're in the final chapter.
We're near the end. We're near. This is the last chapter. There's a lot that can happen here because they got unconscious again. The monster is there again.
They wake up in the cabin of a boat.
Yeah, this is a cool scene.
Yeah, so they wake up.
It's only 2 pages long, but it's cool.
Yeah, and Cutter's like taking off the monster costume, and he's like, "I was the monster," and they're like,
"You
"Yeah,
weren't a dinosaur."
No, there are no aquatic dinosaurs. And they're like, "Yeah, there are. The plesiosaur. No, the plesiosaur was a marine reptile."
It diverged earlier. It was more related to diapsids. So
he doesn't say any of that.
They realize they're on the fishing boat that was spying on them.
And then he says, but Frank says, "Here's our monster. I thought I smelled rubber when it got me under the water. You smelled the rubber under the water?
I didn't even read that.
But yeah, they find out that Cutter was the monster, and they're like, "Look, you got us tied up."
I thought I smelled rubber. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, he's like, "I don't care about lost American treasures or the Blackstone fortune. I'm after the main value of the pond." And he's like, "You mean you're going to make it a fishing resort?" And he's like, "I'm not going to tell you that." So he says, "I don't care." He's like, he doesn't care about the fortune. He doesn't care about the lost American treasures. Mm-hmm. He cares about the main value of the pond to make it a desirable body of water.
Yeah. So this is the whole scene that gets me. This guy, they get the horse, the raspy guy, to like sink the boat, but this guy has already tried to kill them 4 times. Yeah. Once explosively, twice with a knife, and then once by pushing one out the window. Kill them before you sink the boat.
Yeah, he says...
Hide the bodies.
Kill them first.
I am not a villainous person, but if I would do things differently.
Yeah, I would do things...
Not even me as a villain. Like, I would just be like, hey, if I'm like this invested in this plot...
And I'm going to kill them. I'm hoping they die.
I tried to kill them before. Like, this is just like round 3. Like, I'll just try again.
Yeah, and then Frank says the classic, Well, what he says is, why not tell us your real scheme since we're your prisoners? But he basically says, oh, hey...
This is like the game again. Like, let's take stuff out of your pockets.
Yeah. But it's Frank just being like, oh, hey, now's about the time in the book where the criminal usually tells us all the stuff. Before we die, would you mind?
And like Fenton behind the scenes is like, do it.
Yeah. But he tells them the whole plan, all this stupid stuff nobody cares about.
Yeah, do they even go that much into detail? They just say, I was the monster.
He's
and
like,
then
I made up my monster.
I wanted to frighten away curious intruders instead of like... But, like, obviously you draw them in because, like, people are going to be like, what was that big fin
I hear there's a monster. Yeah, he says, see this rope with the weight on both ends?
It's so Scooby-Doo. It's like B-grade Scooby-Doo, and I never thought that was possible.
This is the... Oh, yeah, definitely. He's like, this is the garbage part of him telling, like, too much information, answering mysteries that aren't really mysteries at this point, things we forgot about. That included you, Hardys, the night I made my second dive. See this rope with the weights on both ends? That's what I used to drag Blackstone into the water. By the way, I was a printer by trade. I managed to sneak into the records office, composing room, and insert the extra bit into Worst Story. Thought I'd make Blackstone so tired of the pond, he'd be glad to sell. And now I'm on Easy Street. And you're like, wait, what?
So at this point...
you were a printer
so
by
at this point,
trade?
this is another thing. Yeah, like, so many wrong... Like, just... This is not true. None of this is true. But this whole plan was hinging on the fact that, like, them being scared of the pond would make them sell it. But it's really clear at this point that they've already like started to forget about this place. Like they've already started to forget about the pond until like
a monster showed up.
Thought each other was trying to get interested in it, which was because of Cutter. So
yeah,
like,
he's the one who made
all
everybody.
Of this, like he caused his own problems.
Yeah, he could have
what
gone
he could have
out
done is been like, I'm gonna go out in my scuba suit
in black,
and like every night go and try to find the treasure, which is like really clearly there. It's like Hardy Boys found it in one.
And then you know what? Maybe I'll use dynamite. No. I'll use a saw.
Just use a saw and just get the treasure.
And
he would have found it in, I'd say, 4 days of hard work. Rather than like 2 years of like libel-related conspiracy. What is this? He's wasting his own life.
Everyone in this book is allergic to hard work. No one wants to do it.
No, this is harder. That's what I'm saying. Like, this
it
is
is.
so
it's
hard
much
to
more
do.
of a long game.
He has to like find conspirators and like find people that are willing to work with him that
Pay
he
off
pays off.
Bellman.
Like, where does he get the money? He works as a typist like at night or something.
Well,
like,
he's a printer.
Everything is so wrong in his life. Like I feel bad for him.
I feel like he should get the treasure.
I feel like he's he should.
All he wants is
he should get the treasure. I'll say that now.
So he he locks them into the sinking boat.
Yep.
Yeah, at first he locks them and they're like, well, what are they going to do? And then a motorboat like pulls up and they're like, why is there another boat now? And then they hear like smashing and ripping sounds and then the boat starts to fill with water and they're like, oh, they're sinking the boat we're in. I bet they rented it from that same guy.
Yeah. I bet he was very willing to rent it to them once he found out who would be in the boat.
Yeah, exactly. He's like,
who'd you
gonna
say?
take
Hardy
these
Boys?
unconscious
Okay.
Hardy Boys out? You know what? Go on. Have fun. Please bring the boat back. And they're like, will do.
And they probably will because even criminals are like nice people they don't know.
No, they sink it.
Yeah, so
I think that's the boat that they
there's
sink.
another illustration here. It looks like a tornado turning into an ocean. It says
the person got tired of drawing the water.
The boat is 3 times as large as a man, as a grown man. So like it says soon the ocean. So I'm imagining this above ground enclosure that the room that they're all locked in, which has like 4 large windows on it.
Yeah, it's easy to get out.
Someone in a wetsuit's climbing out of it. Do they have their wetsuits on?
I guess they both have their wetsuits.
But so soon the ocean was pouring over the gunwales of the sinking boat. So, peril, I guess, but...
Yeah, they grab a big, like a big metal locker, and they smash open the door of the room they're locked in. And then Professor N is like, I can't swim! And I just thought, well then, bye! Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, that's right.
But
he can't swim, but he's been like going looking for artifacts in a pond.
Yeah, he definitely. They get rubbing alcohol, that they somehow have.
Oh, is that in the cabin of the ship?
Yeah, a 5-pound box of sugar that is also in the cabin.
Yep.
They cover the big chunks of wood from the ship.
Questionable chemistry number 2, I read.
Yeah, questionable chemistry with sugar, and then they saturate them with alcohol, and then they light them on fire, and they light up green, and they just float them out from the sinking ship until somebody sees them, and the Coast Guard does see them.
Does sugar burn green?
I don't know.
Let's just pour alcohol in the water and set it alight. And they'd be like, ah!
Fuck!
Just burn themselves.
Mr. Rand lights his
alcohol
clothes
does
on
not.
fire.
I guess they like Saturated with them with alcohol, but like alcohol spreads.
And how do they have the time to do all? Well, whatever. Okay.
Well, whatever.
The police show up.
It's green burning things. It's like Game of Thrones, and then they escape.
And then as they reach the newspaper office, a car speeds up. The police are like, "Get them!" And
wait, the police?
Yeah, wait. No, two men jump from the automobile and grab the Hardys. Police! What? And then Frank and Joe came a familiar voice from behind them. You here?
Yeah.
And all right?
Dad!
Burst out the astounded brothers as Fenton Hardy stepped forward. "It's okay," he said to the officers. "These are my sons."
So they were going to arrest the victims? What the hell? These police are so incompetent. They're like, "That boat's sinking. There's a signal flare. Stop, you villains. Like, you are trapped in a boat."
Also,
and then it had to take their dad, this internationally famous detective, to be like, "Don't arrest the children."
Who it seems like he rode down with them.
And they're like, "We have no time to lose." Okay, this is one of my favorite things. They say, "We have no time to lose, Dad," said Frank. Briefly, he brought his father up to date, which is like, that's 200 pages of exposition there. I mean,
briefly.
That's going to take, we've been talking for 2 hours at this point.
It started with a libel suit, and then, okay.
And then there was a guy who wanted to get ketchup, but he'll come in later. 1 second. And then basically everything that we have said to you thus far, minus the stuff that was cut, which is probably a lot because we're not very good at talking to the ether. And he's like, "Dad, let me get you up to date." And then this dad's like, "Okay."
Yep. Okay, great. Let's do it.
And he leads the police to doing things that are actually police-worthy.
He does actually.
Following men that are criminals.
I do think, though, that while he was riding down in the back of the police car, they were like, "And you're out there to get your boys?" "Yes, the Hardy Boys." "Right, Hardy Boys, right. And you're our prisoner?" "No, I'm not a prisoner. I'm a detective."
Yeah, but luckily...
Okay, great. And then they saw him. They're like, "Hardy Boys, that's what he said. Get him."
Those boys, the only boys that are new in town. And then my favorite thing is that I'm really glad they didn't spend 5 extra minutes catching their dad up because they got there just in time.
Yeah.
Like masked men almost killed Chet. He was like holding them at gunpoint. So if they had been like, "Oh, and Dad, one more thing. There was the treasure, it turns out we had to get dynamite and there was a fuse." Like, check.
Bang! As they hear a bang from the newspaper offices. Oh, like I said, we didn't have time.
That's the end of the book. They got away. We didn't have time.
But no, they hold everybody up.
Yeah.
Everyone gets arrested. It's in this one. They open the treasure chest. That's the big thing. They open this treasure chest finally, and so inside is a fortune of Confederate money, which I thought was an okay twist. That I was like, it's all worthless. But then they're not okay with it just being the treasure was worthless. They're like, no, there actually is a fortune.
Yeah.
In old rotted cypress trees that have been under the water for 200 years.
Which are nowhere else in the state, apparently. There's like a micro ecosystem of dead trees that exist in this like stagnant pond that you happen to discover that are worth more than this treasure.
A huge fortune in valuable wood to persons who can get it out and market it. And then Fenton, weirdly, Blackstone's like, I don't want to fund this project. And rules
they need some things that make sense.
But then Fenton Hardy does a weird thing, and I was like, Fenton Hardy's always running the con. They both decide that they don't have the money to like finance this cypress lumber operation.
But Fenton has a Jamaican wood smuggler that he knows.
My client in Jamaica deals in valuable lumber.
He's such a criminal.
He'd like to branch out into this country.
When people say they have a client in Jamaica, they're not wood smugglers. Like, you know that, right? Like, Fenton's dealing.
Yeah, what kind of crops are you smuggling into the country in the 60s?
Oh my god. Yeah.
But yeah, so they all agree that it was all worth...
The Hidden Harbor mystery, let me just recap for everyone that was listening, was rotted wood.
Dirty old swamp trees. And those dirty old swamp trees were worth 8 or 9 attempted murders of teenagers.
Because Cutter knew this the whole time.
He was like, I just want the swamp trees.
I want the swamp trees, but I don't want anyone to know that I own the swamp trees.
Why didn't he just go to them and be like, look, your swamp is full of valuable lumber. I will finance the lumber if you allow me to access to it, and I'll cut you in.
Probably more than he hired those murderers out for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's
the end of the book. We'll do a final check-in with our bingo. I definitely got Fenton Hardy at the end there.
Yeah. If Submarine completes it, you get the asterisk.
I got a submarine, and I'm going to put that I got bingo.
Did they get tied up ever? Were they tied up in the boat?
They were tied up in the boat, yep.
Hell yeah. So if you get the submarine bingo, so do I.
Okay.
Because there was boys get tied up. The boys left Bayport. Fenton Hardy came at the very end. Sabotage. and the submarine sandwich.
I got a submarine sandwich, a minority that was not Phil Cohen or Tony Prito. I got Fenton Hardy. I got a ghost, and I got attempted murder.
Oh, so you didn't even need the submarine?
No, I did.
Oh.
It was my top.
So it looks like we both got asterisk bingos, which is
it's like a tie.
Yeah.
You don't really feel like you won.
I feel
it's like
I
kissing
won.
your sister. That's what people say. That's the saying about ties. Doesn't count. And I'm like, that counts, and you should count it in a different box than the normal kisses.
Yeah, that's the box I don't want to hear you talk about.
Patrick, final thoughts?
I think I gave my final thought when I said that the Hidden Harbor Mystery was Swampwood.
Yeah, Swampwood. Dirty Rock.
I really like the book.
Trees.
I was disappointed that the crocodile smuggling ring never really came into fruition.
Who was that?
I don't know. I think it might have been
unrelated. That doesn't seem likely.
It might have been like the. Don't they talk about the end? It might have been like the. Oh, they do talk about the end. It was like the antique dealers also dealing crocodiles, but that's not the mystery apparently.
I felt like that never came up again.
Yeah,
all right.
It was really exciting. I was like, ooh, they're flying over Bayport. This is going to be worth it. They saw this smuggling thing.
All right. Well, do you have anything you want to plug? Do you have anything coming up in your life?
You know what? That's no, because I don't appear in public very often. I have a very reclusive job. I do stuff relating to paleontology and.
Well, tell me something exciting about paleontology.
Well, yeah. So there's always a lot of exciting things in paleontology, especially being out west. But I will be going out to the field, which is always exciting because you get to find dinosaurs, sometimes new ones. So the last dinosaur they found close to Denver was of course, the Thornton Torosaurus, which is the 67 million year old Triceratops relative that's extremely rare. So I've been working on preparing the bones of that animal.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Patrick.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so Jess, what do you remember about the book that you read?
It was about the Hardy Boys going to the West.
The West, yes.
And one time, I think the two boys seemed to work together.
Yes.
Which seems new. There was lots of fat jokes. There were fat jokes about that one guy.
Fat jokes all over. Chet Morton. Do you remember when they split, when they were chased through that town and they split up?
Yes.
And we were like, why did they know to split up? And then they got back together. I remember
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
Where
That's
they worked together.
And one of them caught himself on the edge of the roof with his fingertips.
Yes, I remember that. I remember in that one, there was a lot of cowboys.
Cowboys.
Yeah, it was Montana.
It's all a blur. Didn't they? I remember that they always had plenty of food. Like they'd fallen in a river with horses.
They fell in a river and they lost all their supplies except for, and then it was like tents, food, fire making equipment, sleeping bags. All their equipment was fine.
It was just fortunate.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember a frozen waterfall, but I don't remember why.
Yeah.
They had to go into they get lost in the blizzard. They kill a wolf. Remember when they killed that wolf? They get surrounded by wolves and then they hit it over the head with the big rock?
That's the cover illustration.
Yeah.
Haunting.
The wolves. All right, great. Well, did you listen to your episode?
I listened to most of it.
Did you listen to any other episodes?
The last 10 minutes, or no, not even that long. I missed the end. I listened to Mitch's
episode is great. Okay. So, Jack, you have read 2 Hardy Boys books for the show.
For the show, yeah. A lot more as a kid.
So, what do you remember about... Do you remember anything... What were the 2 stories you did? The first one that you did... Oh, God, I don't remember any of them. I forget them as soon as I read them.
Yeah, I do the same thing. The first story that I read was, well, the second story was Footprints Under the Window. That's when we went to the Huelas Islands. We had the whole thing with Jack Wayne was the pilot the whole time.
Terrible.
Yeah.
The skeleton, right? Was that the one with the skeleton in the rainforest?
The centipede crawled out of the skeleton's eye.
I remember that.
In like a very cartoon, like,
Johnny
adventure
Quest,
moment.
Yeah.
Give me a second, and I will remember parts of the other story.
In the other story, there were like missing chums.
The missing chums!
Because their friends were on a boat, right? That
got sabotaged, maybe.
They were kidnapped. It was...
I remember at one point, Tony Prito rolls his ankle.
Yeah.
Remember they're on
and they have to,
like an island.
They're
and they
hiking.
Have to they're hiking and they're hiding from people. There's a bunch of boat theft that occurs.
The missing
in that
chums.
One.
I just remember the crime barn.
Well, that's
was in the old.
That was from the original, the 1920s one. Because I for missing chums, I had both the 20s version and the rewritten version, and they were totally different books. Yeah, like they had a crime barn in the back of their house.
Not just the lab over the garage.
Exactly. That had a boxing ring in the middle of it. And they were like, at one point, Biff and Tony
are sparring.
They are like sparring. Yeah, and Chet gets stuck in a window and gets spanked with paddles or something like that.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty crazy. And in that original one, Aunt Gertrude is described totally different.
Oh right, because in our version, Aunt Gertrude is a thin, shrill woman, unmarried, very clearly unmarried.
Yeah,
speaks her mind.
Yeah, she's described as kind of angular.
Yeah.
And in the original book, she's described as very large and rotund, and sort of like, I imagine. Do you remember that British sitcom Keeping Up Appearances?
Oh, of course,
and,
Hyacinth.
Yeah. That, and I imagine her very much like that.
As Hyacinth Bouquet.
Yeah, Hyacinth Bouquet, and she also had a large white cat named Lavinia.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything you're looking forward to in this next year?
I think I talked about it in other interviews, but I love the Nancy Drew stuff.
Okay.
I don't love the Nancy Drew stories, but I like the shifting off to other sides.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be fun to every now and again do an offshoot episode.
Like a Boxcar.
Boxcar Children or Famous Five we've talked about.
Bobbsey Twins.
Encyclopedia Brown. There are a lot of ones out there, so it'd be cool to go out, but I also feel like we're on the cusp of the Hardy Boys adventure stories I've talked about it on the show before, in the way I remember them.
The globe-trotting
exactly.
gadgets.
They're way more Indiana Jones than they are Encyclopedia Brown. So I feel like we're getting there. We're starting to explore exotic locales, and there's starting to be more explosions.
Well, my hope for the next year is that they go to Europe.
Oh,
Because they haven't gone to Europe.
Yeah.
And I feel like if they could go to Europe or what they would probably refer to as the Orient, I would
Far East.
The Far East is what. Yeah, I guess you could call it that. But I think they would probably call it the
Orient, and there would be a lot of Oriental people in it.
Well, yeah, because that's who lives there.
Yeah.
So. Okay, great.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yep. Okay, I'm gonna talk to you, Jose.
Okay.
So, what were you were raising your finger to? A couple. You were it looked like you wanted to chime in there. Just on the paddles. Or
the Boxcar Children. Yeah. I read the Boxcar Children, but it's funny because after doing the podcast with you, I was trying to harken back to those short chapter book stories that I loved when I was little, and I would love to go back through and re-examine the Animorphs book series.
So the other night you were doing Great Space Escape, and there was an image on the screen of a woman who was half a cow. She was half bear, half bear, and I immediately was like, "Oh, it's halfway through an Animorphs book."
Yeah, and you'd get them and you'd flip them in the corner.
You flip to the middle of it.
Right.
Jack and I will sometimes go to thrift stores, and if they have Animorph books there, we will just open the middle of the books and look at the deformed teenager that's half badger.
Do you read the page? It's probably
the
Hork-Bajir were
was that the aliens?
Down. Yep.
And you have to touch the disc.
I was obsessed with those
the
books.
Animorphs.
Oh my god! I would love to do an Animorph.
Who was the one that was stuck as a hawk?
Tobias.
I
have to be honest with you. I probably will never have children, but I would want to name one of my children
Tobias, after
specifically
the hawk
because
boy.
of that.
Did he ever get to be a boy again?
He does. He gets a little cheaty run around, and one of the things I really loved about those books is that I remember the first series of books that I read where the characters seemed real. The Hardy Boys they're kind of fake.
They are fake. You were talking about their sibling rivalry a little.
Yeah, so they don't have
or
lack of one.
Yeah.
And they're what, a year apart?
They're a year apart. They're both boys.
First of all, I feel like maybe one of them's Aunt Gertrude's kid. I mean, a year apart? That is a
Aunt Gertrude is Fenton's sister, not Laura's
okay, maybe not. But
Laura,
know what?
I don't
Laura
judge.
had a kid, and then a year later she popped out another one. Nine of those months she had to be.
They're called Irish
pregnant.
twins.
No wonder she's on Valium all the time. But there's no sibling rivalry to the boys. The boys are kind of like the same person. They have the same exact reactions to every situation. They have the same exact ideas.
They say that Joe is the impetuous one, but Frank seems as impetuous.
They do the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
they charge in.
Yeah, or somebody shows up and they're like, "This is a clue," and the other one's like, "That's just what I was thinking," and I'm like, Do the Hardy Boys ever get into debates as to like whether or not
that's what I'm
clue?
hoping for. Maybe I should add that to bingo. Like Hardy Boys fight each other.
I don't think that'll ever happen.
The Hardy Boys disagree.
The Hardy Boys disagree. I don't. That'll be the bingo killer. I don't think that one will ever happen. Bingo. Because like even in the one that Sinister Signpost is the one that I did.
That's coming up soon.
And even in that one, there's like a part where the boys get a chance to get in like a super awesome advanced race car and just like race up and down in the mountains. And they have to draw straws.
Right.
Right?
And if Frank wins...
And there's like a single sentence that's like, Joe was a little jealous, but he was really excited to, I don't know, do something else.
You have to go stand by the road.
What kind of, no. That's
no,
not.
brother would be like, no, you cheated.
I know.
And then they'd fight.
I feel like they would get in fights all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, me and my sister are really, really close, but it's a sibling rivalry is a thing.
Everybody argues. Also, like, they're dating these two girls who are best friends, and, like, what if Frank broke up with Callie Shaw and then decided he wanted to go on a date with Iola Morton?
I feel like
Joe would be like, fine by me, buddy. Like, yeah, like, I don't think it would matter. And then Chet would be like, no, hold on. But no
that's my sister.
Yeah.
Nobody does listen to Chet.
No,
poor Chet.
Hardy Boys Drinkbook Podcast is produced by Jack and Charles Webster. It is a part of their network. Our music is provided by Danny Overby of Round 2 Productions, and our graphic design is done by Kristen Hallstrom. Special thanks to Patrick Sullivan for being on the show, and to the Lowry Beer Gardens. Also, special thanks to all of our wonderful past hosts over this last year. It's been a lot of fun. Keep checking back, and enjoy the next year of the Hardy Boys Drinkbook Podcast. Tune in next time for episode 15 of the Hardy Boys Drinkbook Podcast, The Sinister Signpost, featuring actor Jose Zuniga.